When people stay the same, it's incredibly disturbing to me, because if you stay the same, you either have some incredibly deep-seated convictions that are comprehensive. You can't change a single opinion because of those beliefs. If you're only wrapped up in the world of faith, you might actually think only people who have faith are bad thinkers. But the moment you step into any other domain of the world, you realize, no, we're all bad thinkers. Like, it's very easy to move into bad thinking.
What are some things that you see now that we can change for the future?
Well, with the emergence of AI, whoever values human uniqueness, curiosity, creativity, and imagination is going to thrive in the future. A human being's special sauce is love. And when we add love to the mix, we are untouchable by AI.
You are listening to Mind Shift. My name is Erwin McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin McManus.
And it's good to be here with you. And you ever felt like people were watching you?
No, I live in a house with like 15-foot hedges on purpose. Because the outside world makes me nervous.
Yeah, but we have with us everyone here at the Mosaic Conference. You guys say hi?
Yes.
So this is Mind Shift Live, which is kind of cool.
Okay, so this has been a journey, right? It used to be called Battle Ready.
Yes.
Based off of
some emojis in the room.
Yeah. And then we have a whole community of called the Arena. And how many of you are any of you guys in that here? Oh, amazing.
That's awesome.
It's been fun.
We started this podcast because about 10 years ago, I had cancer.
Yeah.
And you came to me after the surgery and you said, Dad, if you had died, there are so many questions I would have never been able to ask you. So could we start a podcast and I could ask you those questions and we could share them with the world?
Yes. And then I quickly realized that he doesn't answer anyone's questions.
This is how the podcast goes, if you've never been on it, by the way.
The thing that makes me nervous about doing it live is that, like, my rules are like, Aaron, don't cuss, don't get violent, don't walk away. Because when you do it privately, we fight a lot. Like a lot. And so my first question is, how do you deal with me?
We have had some podcast sessions where we've not finished.
No. Yeah.
We haven't started.
Yeah.
We end up getting in a fight within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's over for the day. And then Austin's sitting there with the camera, very lonely. And then he says, hey, we need to do a podcast, so I can edit it in time for Friday.
Yeah.
And so it's real. We just decided to be real, to be honest, to have our fights publicly, to disagree, and to help people grow as we grow. And it's been a lot of fun. And what's interesting is through the pandemic, we kind of flipped. Because I would say that when we first started the podcast, I would very consciously take very, very liberal positions and advocate for everyone who had a more liberal perspective of the world.
Because you kind of are one.
Yeah, thank you. And you would take more libertarian or conservative positions culturally.
Because I am
politically.
One.
Yeah, and then during the pandemic, we started flipping.
You flipped.
Thank you. And see, this is how it goes. This is how it's going to go the whole hour, okay, by the way. And I became more vocal about things that would probably have been more advocated by people that were more conservative culturally. And at one point you were like, Dad, you're going way too far on one side. But I think part of it is that when people stay the same, it's incredibly disturbing to me. Because if you stay the same, you either have some incredibly deep-seated convictions that are comprehensive. You can't change a single opinion because of those beliefs, or you're not a thinker. And so you're just holding belief systems without evaluation and examination. And what I love about this podcast is just, one, when we began, we said, let's have the conversations that everybody wants to have, but no one's having. And also, let's be honest when we change our minds. Let's not pretend we know the answers to everything, and let's be on a journey together to figure things out.
Yeah.
And And then, there were times when we'd stop and go, we probably should edit that. But that's not been as often.
As much, because I have learned to stop running my mouth as much.
Self-editing is a part of maturity.
Yes. And so is just editing.
But so the conversation I want us to have today.
Yes.
We talked about quite a few things, and we normally cover 2 or 3 topics within one episode. But one of the things I thought would be really good to talk about is about thinking. Because one of the things that really fuels me is trying to elevate the level at which we think. And of course, because I am a follower of Jesus and I'm a person of faith, and I've been a pastor for many decades, one of my great passions or desires, at least, or I feel like stewardships, is to try to elevate the thinking of Christian leaders and people who speak on behalf of Jesus. And Mariah was coaching me backstage, saying, "Be nice, be nice, be nice."
But that's for later.
For later, okay.
We talked about maybe opening it up to some questions and answers, but you notoriously have you have a reputation of whoever asks the first question, you destroy. Like, so brutal. I'm like, they like us. Like, they're asking a question because they want to know an answer.
But see, that's perspective. I don't feel like I destroy the first person. I feel like I liberate them.
There's so many things wrong with that statement.
I am setting them free from bad thinking.
Thank you for continuously setting me free.
But I want to expand this even beyond that, because if you're only wrapped up in the world of faith, you might actually think only people who have faith are bad thinkers. But the moment you step into any other domain of the world, you realize, no, we're all bad thinkers. Like, it's very easy to move into bad thinking. It's very easy to embrace beliefs and convictions that are rooted in emotions and experiences rather than even on truth or something that's transcendent or absolute beyond us. And I think it's actually really hard to know what's a belief and what's a truth, right? And I remember when you were probably 10 years old, we were driving in the car.
Was I really 10 years old?
What?
Was I really 10?
9, 10 years old, somewhere in there.
Okay.
You can tell me how old you were then.
Okay.
And,
we have a thing where he's
always 10.
I've always been 10.
And
Where like so much so that one of the guys that we work with now was like, you're an adult. I was like, yes. He's like, your dad talks about you like you're 12 still. And I'm like, oh. Okay.
But we were in the car, and then you said, "Dad, I don't know that if I wasn't growing up in a Christian home that I would be a Christian." And we're driving, and I thought, "Really? Why?" And he goes, "You said, I have so many doubts and questions." And I said, "Oh, doubts and questions, I have those. Everyone has those." And I was a little nervous because, I was wondering where you were going with that. But I tried to stay calm, drove a little while, still quiet. And I said, "So what do you think you're going to do?" And you said, "Well, I don't know. I've met God, so I don't know what I can do." But I realized, and I remember I had that thought in that moment as your parent, this is going to be a really painful journey for him. It's so much easier when you're 10 years old and you just believe. You believe in Santa Claus.
He never had a chance.
No. And
if he's fat and he's going through the chimney, this is never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Logically, my brain was never gonna let that work.
Yeah. And I remember when you were around 3, and I know you were 3 because it's before we moved to LA, and you were laying in bed and you asked me, "How can I know if I love you?" I thought,
did that hurt?
Well, I didn't say what you said right before that. That hurt more.
What did I say?
We're at dinner.
Wait, hold on.
Should I say it?
I don't know. I was 3.
He was 3.
Yeah.
He was 3.
Okay.
He's at dinner, And Kim was trying to make him eat his food, and he didn't want to eat his food. And then he looked at his mom and he said, "I don't love you." And she started crying uncontrollably and was angry.
That's why she doesn't listen to the podcast.
And then that night, when I was putting you to bed and you didn't want to go to bed, you said, "I don't love you." And I realized, he just realized he found a tool because, Kim fell apart and was just brokenhearted. And of course you loved her, but, and I looked at you and I said, "Hey, buddy, it doesn't matter if you love me because I love you." And then you got real quiet and you said, "Well, Daddy, how can I know if I love you?" And I realized life is going to be really hard for you.
Jeez.
Because 3-year-olds aren't trying to grapple with the abstract meaning of love. They just love their teddy bear, and they love gummy bears, and they love their mom and dad. And so when we're talking about thinking, I just want to say up front, it has been a great privilege to be your dad and to watch your really complex thinking develop over a lifetime. And I know that a lot of times it has felt like a curse to you.
Which part?
The questioning everything.
Okay.
Because when you question everything, it's like walking on quicksand. You're not sure if the next step is the one that sends you under. But at the same time, I think that is the part of the unique way God's crafted you. And it's why you're always good at asking questions, because you have a curious mind that won't allow you to accept I was going to use a phrase, but a half-baked question.
Have you ever loved something or someone so much you didn't want to love again?
Well, yes. I think I went through that multiple times. I think when I was afraid to get married because I didn't know if I could be committed to one person because I had not seen a marriage work. But when I married your mom, so for me, it was like love was an incredibly profound thing. It was really wrapped around a commitment to be someone for someone. And but I was afraid when your mom was pregnant with you because I didn't know if I would know how to love you. And then when you're born, something exploded inside of me, and I thought I loved your mom with all I had. And then you were born, and I discovered there was a whole different dimension of love that I'd never known. And then when Kim got pregnant with Mariah, I was actually afraid because I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to love this child like I love this one.
But it's hard. That I understand.
But when Mariah was born, it wasn't a problem at all. Yeah. And here's the thing that is odd about human beings and about love. Not one drop of love was diminished for Kim when you were born. And not one drop of love for you was diminished when Mariah was born, because love is an unlimited capacity. It is not a limited resource. It is an unlimited resource.
Okay. Do you find that love makes us jealous? Or why is there so much jealousy wrapped around love?
No, I find that greed makes us jealous. So I think that it's easy to mistake love and greed because they're both built around a want. And whenever you're jealous, you can know it's actually formed by greed, not by love. And because love never tries to possess. And greed tries to possess. And when you don't try to possess someone, then you don't have the space for jealousy. And I know the flip side question, but the Bible says that God is a jealous God.
That's not where I was going to go.
What? No, but I know that, didn't anybody think that?
Yeah.
It's because everything actually does belong to him.
You really are special. And I mean that as a compliment, and it really is fun to be your son. Like I will say, there has been seasons and eras where it sucked. You'd go on, we would do this thing where you would travel and you'd speak, and I really had the gift of going with you all over the world and you really brought me with you in times that you really shouldn't. He was the worst parent when it came to like school field trips, because I knew that if he volunteered to take me to a school field trip, it meant he was going to pull me out of the school field trip and then take me to whatever meeting he wanted to go to. And then he would be like, look, if you just keep this between us, like we will get ice cream or something afterwards.
The focus was on field trip, not school.
It was true. He was like, I'm not lying. The field, you're in the field. And you're taking a trip. It's a trip. But it has been a gift to be your son. And I do think that I haven't, at times been the best son, right? And we can always be better. But how did you manage parenting us? Because I think me and Mariah are both very strong-willed. I have a high need for freedom. School couldn't keep me in, church couldn't keep me in, relationships couldn't keep me in, and I have this the fear of being controlled, and so much so that I've rebelled against that. So anything that tries to keep me within a certain line, it's been a process. But you've been able to manage me and Mariah so uniquely and so differently. As a parent, you didn't get gray till much later in life. I was really surprised by that. How has the process been? Because I see so many people in this room with like their kids around, and it's just a beautiful experience. And they say like, they love the pod, we love your relationship, and I'm like, yeah, you love what you see, But what we don't see is there's so much more underneath the surface, right?
Yeah, I think for me, one, I really love being a parent and still do. I'm obviously going to be a parent till I die, and it doesn't end when you become a full grown adult. I just thought you and Mariah are both two of the most interesting people I'd ever met. And I think that sometimes parents underappreciate the serendipity of having a human being born into your life by God's design. It's like God going, here's the person I want you to know, and I want them to know you all of their life. And so I can say without any hesitation, there wasn't ever, even in your worst moments, there was never a moment for you and Mariah where I thought, this isn't the greatest gift God's ever given me. So, I'm grateful for Kim and who she is in my life, and God allowed me to be her husband. And I'm super grateful for you and Mariah. And I just find you both to be really fascinating, very different, both incredibly strong-willed.
Who's stronger? I know the answer. Mariah, for sure.
Is she in the room?
She's behind us.
No. You're perfect.
Yeah, she is. She's really powerful.
Yeah. But I think part of the challenge, because I want to keep it maybe talking about this realm of thinking, is that one of the things I tried not to do is to tell you guys what to think. I really worked hard to try to teach you how to think, not what to think.
I've begged you.
I know, both of you. In fact, Mariah used to come to me and goes, I don't need you to be Yoda. I don't need you to be Buddha or Zen. I just need you to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, honey.
To tell you is to.
If you do this, then this will happen. And if you do this, this will happen.
Why are you like that? Well, how did you get to that place? Because I imagine at some point, because I remember growing up with you. I know David Arcos. There's trauma. The way you led fiercely and intensely, and I think that we live in an era where people, obviously, there's so much social media, right? And there's so many news outlets. There's so many things that are built around this. But you lived in an era where you could be intense to a degree where no one was ever going to really know outside the people that experienced you. But then now we experience you in this Jedi kind of mindset, like you're Yoda now. But you're kind of Vader before. So how did you evolve? How did you get to that place, right? Like, because you were really intense. And how did you maybe not calm it down, but how did you take it internal?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know if I care to answer it, but I kind of look back and I think when I grew up in an emotionally volatile world and a very unsafe space, and so I was an observer of life, and I watched a lot of power dynamics, and I've always felt pretty powerless. So I realized that I didn't have the physical or authoritative or positional power to bring any change I wanted. So I had to think ahead and go, how can I get the end result I want or I need when you have no objective power? And some of it I learned early on was through storytelling. I could begin to tell a story and it would get people thinking. Like we lived in Miami, Florida, and I was watching a football game, North Carolina State versus North Carolina. And I don't know why, but I said, whoever wins this game, that's where I'm going to go to college. And so University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill won the game, and that is where I went to college. But the problem was we lived in Miami, so I needed us to move to North Carolina. And so somehow, in the mix of it all, we ended up going to North Carolina for vacation and the mountains. And I just began, talking about North Carolina a lot. And before I knew it, my mom and stepdad just packed up and we all moved to North Carolina.
So you've always been a Jedi. Okay. Okay, that answers the question.
And I just realized that a lot of leadership, of thinking, is opening up people's minds to possibilities. And that if you don't have, quote, directive force, you have non-directive force. And, and so I think that's part. And then when I became a follower of Jesus in college, I just thought Jesus was the most extraordinary leader I'd ever seen. And it's like he didn't move a muscle to move human history. Like it just felt like everything just came out of his essence. And so I wanted to really model that as much as possible. And I remember when you were 10 years old. No, no, you were probably 15 or so. And you said, Dad, are we Republicans or are we Democrats?
You know the answer now.
And
no, I'm sorry, I'm kidding.
And I gave you 10 questions.
No, yeah,
and I purposely designed the questions so that 5 of them you would come out a Democrat, and 5 of them you would come out a Republican. Do you remember this?
You're why. You are why I am like this. Okay, there we go. We understand
and when you
now.
took it, you answered the questions, so I didn't answer the questions for you.
Okay.
And it was over. It was 5-5, and then you looked at me. You said, and evidently you're getting pressure at school. And and you said, Dad, if it's 5-5, what am I? What do I tell them at school? And I said, tell them that you are a free thinker. And you went, oh, I like that. So that's our party. Our party is always in the party of free thinking. And what I find is that people would rather have identification than enlightenment. That they would rather be identified with a group of people and concede everything they know isn't true just so they can belong, than to live a more enlightened life and say, 20% of what we believe is right, 80% is wrong, but the 20% we believe is better than the 20% they believe, so I'm just going to stay here. And part of my great dilemma with American Christianity is that we really sell I was going to say our soul, but we sell our minds to lesser thinking to accomplish goals we think are really important. And then later on, they come back to bite us. And then so many of my friends who don't believe in Jesus, when they listen to Christian messaging, they can see the flaws in the thinking. And so they think, God isn't very thoughtful or very intelligent. And, I remember I would just start a lot of my conversations with people and saying, hey, look, I know you don't believe in God, and I know that I do. And I want you to know that what we discover in this conversation is that you're way smarter than me. It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. It just means I'm not an adequate representative and of the beauty of who he is. And one of the things that drove me to think at a higher level was Jesus deserved the highest level of thinking to express who he is to the world. And I think we think this way about like character. We think this way about integrity. Like Jesus deserves us to be the best human beings we can be to represent him well. But I don't know if we think of that way in terms of like our intellectual stewardship or even our creative stewardship. And, otherwise we wouldn't have had decades where we made Christian garbage. And
what do you mean? What does that mean?
Like,
don't be too mean, but, what does it mean?
Well, not your generation. Your generation has done much better.
Tell you
but Like, I came to faith in the world where Christian music was pretty bad, and Christian movies were horrible, and Christian art was terrible, and it had to be called Christian something because it's the only way it could be something. And
it took me a second.
You know.
Yeah. No, but okay.
When I looked at that, I thought somehow we have to elevate this. And so you guys are way past this, I think. Like, you just know that beauty is beauty, excellence is excellence, quality is quality, and whether it's Christian or not, like we just recognize it. And then there's been interesting cross-pollination, because what I found was the best singers in America, in the United States, were people who grew up in church, because singing was just normal in church. So you nurtured that gift, and so the best artists, whether it was Whitney Houston or Aretha Franklin, whoever it was, like, the church was a huge influence in the musicality of this nation. And same as the way with, communication. I think Christianity in America has produced some of the greatest communicators our society's ever known, because you're speaking all the time. And so the church has the capacity to create the best in the world. We just didn't think it was our job to create the best in the world in everything. We just thought we're supposed to create, like, for a while, it was like we're supposed to have the best organ players in the world, because everyone in the world needs an organ, And isn't it odd? You go to Montana, this is like 40 years ago, you go to Montana, there'd be a piano and an organ. Now, what are the chances of a town of 80 people to have a piano player and an organ player? It's because you discover the talent that you need. I'm telling you, if every church had a saxophone player, every church would have a player, would have a world-class saxophone player. If every church had a paintbrush, every church would eventually start creating their own Picasso. And it's what we put in our hands, and we define as spiritual, that we excel at.
There's so many places we can go with this. But when you talk about defining something as spiritual, can you expand on that? What are some areas that we have defined, what are some things that we've defined as spiritual that maybe we can edit out? Because I do think that, there's obviously the church world has been tumultuous, but the last few years, but it's always been like that. There's always been ups and downs, and my whole life, right? It's never been perfect, but this idea of what is defining spiritual, like, even in the podcast world now, this new kind of world that we're breaking into or discovering, and these guys that we relate to, we find that the same things that happen in the church are happening in the business world, and so we're kind of continuously finding these trends that we are, like, reintroduced to. What are some things that you see now that we can change for the future?
Well, with the emergence of AI, with the emergence of artificial intelligence, whoever values human uniqueness, curiosity, creativity, and imagination is going to thrive in the future. Everyone who values standardization, efficiency, and conformity is going to be replaced by a computer. Because whatever a human can do without thinking, a computer will do in our place. And so if there's ever been a need for a creative revolution where people really discovers their own unique, like special sauce, their own contribution to the world, their own unique fingerprint, and everything can be done with creativity. It's not just painting. Making a great cup of coffee can be done with creativity and uniqueness and artistry and love. And so in a sense, like, a human being's special sauce is love. And when we add love to the mix, we are untouchable by AI. Yeah.
But you're deeming AI as a bad thing.
Oh, I love AI. I'm so excited. I am. I'm thrilled. I hope I live long enough, to see some of the full development. I've been waiting for this. Are you kidding? I started thinking about AI when I was 8-9 years old. This is not a new concept for me. I have been waiting for the emergence of artificial intelligence for almost 60 years.
Okay. I might hit skip on this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you're someone who thinks a lot. You've always been thinking. You're a thinker. You stay up late at night, so far later than I do. My bedtime's so much earlier than yours, and then I'll get late night texts from you, and then I'll oftentimes leave those group texts just to, or I'll be like, hey man.
You'll send me a private text that say, Dad, leave everybody alone.
Leave everybody alone. No one wants to hear about what's going on up there right now. But have you ever thought so far, Or maybe so deeply, or maybe to a point where you've stopped believing in God? Or gotten to a place where you can't find the answers?
That's, I think, a very deep and nuanced question.
It's simple.
It's simple?
Yeah. Did you ever reach the end?
No, never reached the end. And because it's like for me, everything's always a beginning. I think that my understanding of God has died many times.
Wait, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that, you think you understand God, and you've really created a very limited view of God. And then I was afraid to let that God know, because like it's the only name I've got. I got just one. I don't have 20 names for gods. I just have God.
Yeah.
But I've had probably 20 iterations of my understanding of God. And every time I grow in my experience with God, I realize, I have to die to my previous safe understanding of who God was. And it's scary, because it's just easier to hold on to what you know and than what you're discovering on the journey. And strange enough, I would say that when I gave my life to Jesus, and I still remember the night, I have never questioned the reality of Jesus since. But the reason for that, I think, is because I think I put Jesus in the same category as like breathing for me. Like, I'm not always aware that I'm breathing. I just know that it's happening because I'm alive. And there are times where Jesus has felt very close, and sometimes he's felt very distant. And I remember Kim and I were in Greece for one of, I don't know, like maybe 10 years ago. Maybe, and I don't really share everything that's going on inside of me. I'm actually a very public person who's very private. Because I don't share my thoughts, because they make me uncomfortable. And I remember I took a chance. We were in the pool, and I started sharing with her what I was really thinking about reality and God and Christianity and everything. And Kim's immediate response was, "Do you not believe in Jesus anymore?" And I said, "How in everything I said did you hear that?" But I realized that, see, for most of us, all the threads are connected. Like if you cut one thread, then it all unravels. Like I have come to know Jesus, and I cannot explain it, and I realize I can add a logical argument, but it's not logical. I can backtrack a rational way to God, but it's not rational. I can go to the scriptures and show you a biblical reason why I believe, but I didn't even know the Bible when I came to believe, so it's actually completely contrived. I had an unexplainable encounter that was transcendent, that changed my life. And so I don't know how to deny God, because that experience is the most real experience I ever had in my life. But everything else connected to it are things I'm trying to figure out what actually comes out of knowing Jesus. And that's very difficult. And one of the challenges for me is like, if I had heard most of Christian messaging years later, I would have never come to Jesus. And I know that. And if I had stepped into Christian culture in a different way, I would have never believed it was true. Because I'm just more mystical. Like, I'm a profoundly mystical person. I believe everything is spiritual. I believe that the material universe it submits to the spiritual reality. And so much of Christianity at times can be so, I don't mean materialistic like we want things. It's materialistic in that we're just trapped in existence, and we're afraid of truth. And Dallas Willard, I got to hear him one time before he died, and he said something that I felt like somebody had just put an oxygen mask on my lungs. He said, Jesus would follow truth wherever it led him. And when he said that, I just wanted to stop. In fact, I feel now, it's like I just felt like I was just going to start weeping. Because I feel like most of our faith is built around what we believe, not the pursuit of truth. And it can feel incredibly suffocating when you're just trying to make sense of life. And, but I don't know why I feel emotional, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I feel if we clap, he'll cry more, so let's not. You're someone who doesn't really cry.
No.
No. I cry.
You
I'm
do cry.
Kim's son.
It's weird. See, I'm a person who can cry about how beautiful truth is if we would just pursue it. It's like, it's a weird thing. I know. It's like, I'm not crying about the puppy. It's like, I'm crying about the existential meaning of life and and why it matters so much, because people are lonely and lost in space and suffocating. And I don't do this because I believe so much that I have to convince everyone I'm right. I think I do this because what I do know is what loneliness feels like, and I know you know that too.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit
Yeah.
recently even about the moments where our faith has struggled.
Yeah, I asked you, I said, Aaron, when your faith feels most shaky, when you're most questioning the existence of God or the reality of Jesus, what's going on in your inner world? And I actually misguessed. I said,
I think you said, what did you say? You said depression.
Is it depression?
Yeah. And I think, no, and I said, no, I said it's loneliness. I think loneliness is the deciding factor, right? But I also do think that it's, you've created a really safe space for, I think, me and a lot of people to wrestle with their faith. And, and I think wrestling at times is an understatement. I think I've been at times like vehemently like fighting with God, right? To his face, or not to his face, but, the metaphorical. And it's something I've struggled with, right? And not so much the belief system, but the people, right?
Yeah.
Like the physical manifestation of the people who believe in God. And so it has always been a conversation of, loneliness can be someone in a room filled with people, but how do you find people that you connect with on on a soul level or even on an intellectual level? But is that something you've ever struggled with?
Which part?
Feeling lonely.
Absolutely. I feel lonely. Yeah. Sometimes you don't really know what's going on inside of you.
Yeah.
And Kim and I have been married for 40 years, and probably the first 20 years, I kept my private world really, really private.
What do you mean? Like, what's going on inside of your mind and
my pain, my fear, my doubt, the stuff that was just really circulating inside of me. I just felt like my job was to be strong, and to bring courage, to be optimistic, to bring hope, and to be a good human being.
Yes.
And I remember, but I'm not sure why, but like I have these moments where I feel as if I'm completely separated from everything that exists. And I feel completely and utterly alone. And when I used to feel that, it would just be so overwhelming. But one day I made a choice, and in the middle of it, I called Kim. And I just said, hey, I just need to tell somebody I am alone. And she handled it so well that I always knew, when I'm there, I can just call her. And it's weird. All I have to do is like just tell someone. It's like just sending an SOS across the universe, where there might be some other alien life, and then that person sends the blinker back. You're not alone. And I find that when a person feels deeply and profoundly alone, what they just need is to know one person is there for them. And of course, ironically, that person who offers us that is Jesus. It's just that sometimes you just need a tangible human being that you can talk to face in a sense. But yeah, and as long as I've walked in my faith journey, that part of me has never like completely changed. And so I think that, because we talked about earlier about, hey, should we talk about things like wholeness and mental health, and because those are all important issues, and I think it's a misconception to think that you're not healthy if you have moments of loneliness. or if you have moments of, depression, or if you have moments of sadness, I think we forget that that's all a part of the human cocktail. That's a part of what makes us human. That's like, you're not broken just because you feel sad today.
Yeah, true.
And what it may mean is that you're sensitive, that you're real, and you don't have to have every perfect emotion every second of your life.
You came from an era, we can talk like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're in your 60s.
You can talk to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you came from an era where you couldn't really men don't cry, boys don't cry.
Nope.
Men don't share their emotions. Men don't, not so much tell it. And I think we created a system where men really have a hard time telling the truth at times, right? Because it's like, well, where does the truth go? The truth can only hurt yourself or someone else, right? And so, how do you create safe spaces, or how do you, carve that out with people that you can actually sit in the mud with, right?
Yeah, I think a part of the difficulty is that if you believe people accept you for the person they perceive you to be, it becomes too dangerous to let them see the person you are. And by the way, I'm just going to throw this in there. I think this is one of the dysfunctions in the church, is that we say we're character-based, but really talent sings. And so a person will elevate really fast because of talent. And oftentimes we'll overlook character because the talent is so dynamic. And so what happens is that person keeps elevating, and the higher they go, the more they have to lose if they ever become honest about the struggle in their character. And the person who's least in danger is the person who comes into church a mess. Like, I'm sleeping with my girlfriend, and I'm doing a lot of ayahuasca, and I'm like,
don't do it.
I'm over,
It's crazy.
And that person who's just like, they're just telling you everything they are, they have a better chance of getting healthy because they told you everything. They're not hiding anything. They were proud of it when they came in, you know? Yeah. And it's the person that you think has it all together, and you just assume that. And on that assumption, you elevate them and elevate them and elevate them, and now they don't want to disappoint you. And then later, when they crash and burn, you're angry at them because they lied to you. No, they tried to keep up with who you told them they had to be.
Oh, that's so crazy. I almost don't want to reference this, but we were watching this movie called Saltburn, which this is not a recommendation. It's a recommendation to not watch this movie, honestly. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was like, Oscars. And I was like, oh no, I'm never going to be old enough to watch this movie.
The wrong Oscar.
The wrong Oscar. But there was an interesting line in the movie that really stuck with me, where where Barry Keoghan is looking at Jacob Elordi, and he says, I was only trying to be what you wanted me to be. And he, and Jacob Elordi's mad at him for lying to him about something that's pretty big, about his family or something that was going on. And he looks at him like dead in the eyes, and he goes, why are you upset? I was just trying to be what you wanted. This is what you wanted. You wanted someone you could save. You wanted someone you could help. And I do think that we have that in us, or I know I have that in us. I think, not having those moments in life where you have to be realistic with yourself about where you're at. We have lots of these conversations where, I'm like, hey, I don't know where I am right now, but I'm going forward. Movement is life, and so I'm going to stay alive. We're going to move forward, and it's a beautiful thing. Mariah is like the rock I sharpen myself with, because she will rip your soul out and give it a car wash or cut it in half, and especially if you're a man or on the way to being a man. And there's something about her that she can just see inside of people, and it maybe she's definitely God's gift to me in a lot of ways. But no, you cry, then I cry, then everyone goes, oh, and then it's over. I think what we're gonna ask some questions in a minute.
Yeah, but just joking. I think our time's up. If both of us
the time's up.
Okay, yeah.
No, but my point of that is that there are people who have incredible ability to see into you, right? And she's one of those people I feel like God's given the X-ray vision into my life. She knows somehow when I'm unwell, or she knows when I'm going through something hard. And I think we have that together a little bit. And there's a closeness, but I think the closeness has come through the fact that when we fight, we always come back, right? And I say this to a lot of people, it's easy to be friends when everything's good. You don't know if you're really friends until you fight. You know, and I have friends. I have amazing friends. I have the most wonderful friends who are wonderful people. The moment you fight, they disappear. You know?
Yeah.
But then and then I have an amazing friend named Roy. His name's Rocky. And we had a really awful fight like 3 or 4 years ago. And he did some stuff, I did some stuff. But I did the stuff louder at him in his direction. And we talk about it now because he's the most forgiving person I've ever met. Because he's like, if you didn't say the things to me, it wouldn't have given me a chance to come back. And if I hadn't said the things to you, it wouldn't have given you a chance to come back. And now we're those people who will, die for each other because we decided to like live with each other. And we chose each other knowing each other's weaknesses and brokenness and the things we struggle through. And we had like a remarkable moment this last Christmas because, we were just all going through these things. And it was one of those moments where we laughed and we're like, remember that one time we're on the couch and we're like screaming at each other and we said we're never going to be friends again. And then now look at us here spending Christmas together and having those moments and being able to be open and broken and heal and repair. I just think that those people are such a gift. And it's rare.
Yeah.
Should we ask questions?
Yeah.
So we can stop talking about things that are real?
No, I think this is really important. One, I just love the fact that you circled back around to people.
Yeah.
And the friendships. Because you really do elevate based on the people in your life. And since we started on how to elevate thinking, I want to give this little synopsis real quick.
Talk to me.
First of all, you should always be open to the possibility you're wrong. Because you can't elevate your thinking if you think you're right.
Are you ever wrong?
All the time. In fact, I was in a meeting the other day and I said something. I said, "Hey, check that. I'm wrong so much I don't even know if I can take it anymore." And I'm wrong all the time. Let me just say that up front. And in fact, I'm surprisingly wrong. Like I thought I would be better, but I'm no longer discouraged by being wrong. I used to be afraid of being wrong, and I remember I got asked a question when I was like 32, and I felt hot flash all over me because I thought I don't know the answer, and I thought, oh, I'm inadequate for this role. Somebody had told me that if I didn't know everything, I wasn't competent. And I had the greatest breakthrough of my life. I don't know. And when I said I don't know, I found a superpower. I started using it all the time. I don't know. But then I had a follow-up. But let me find out. And it made me a researcher. I was going through 40 periodicals every week from science to biology to, sports to business to leadership to Harvard, and just voraciously consuming everything because I didn't like not knowing. And but that just became my favorite response. And so one, just assume you're wrong about something, but you don't know the thing you're wrong about. Secondly, the thing you feel right about is probably the thing you're wrong about, because being wrong feels exactly like being right. So, it has the exact same feeling.
Does it?
It does.
Being right feels way better.
No. Knowing you're right feels better. Knowing you're wrong feels worse.
It's crazy. I feel the same. I feel like I know even when I'm wrong, I know I'm right.
Yeah. And I think the third thing is that, does what you believe actually work in real life?
But talk about that.
I don't believe you believe something if it doesn't actually work out in your life. And so, go, I believe, whatever, No. I mean, there are a lot of people who go,
just be nice. Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, a more innocuous one.
Wait, hold on.
There are people who say they believe in generosity, but they never give anything.
Oh, brother, that's crazy.
They believe in everybody being generous toward them. And that was my safer one. That was my safer one.
I know what the other one was.
And
No.
Stop. But that's a good one to apply.
Yes.
Because if all of us took a posture of generosity toward the world would change overnight. And it would dramatically change. And one of the things that I will say, if we have a family value, Kim is generous, you're generous, Mariah and Jake are generous, I consider generosity one of my highest virtues. And it's not an accident.
Your ability to be generous is the level and marker of success.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And so when you say God can be trusted, I want to know, what is your proof for that? Because everybody that I know who believes in Jesus goes, God can be trusted. And then that you live a life where God isn't trusted. And so to me, the best way to elevate your thinking is, does my thinking actually play out in real life?
Can you
Because
give us
that's the best
more?
way to challenge your thinking.
Give us one more.
One more?
One more thing, ism that we need to challenge. But I have the mute button under the table just in case.
There's a lot of directions we could go. And but I think that one of the other ways of challenging your thinking is to listen to people who disagree with you long enough where you see the validity of their position. And until you can see the world from their perspective, you haven't elevated your thinking. Like, I genuinely understand why an atheist is an atheist.
Why?
Because you see the world from inside of their world, and they have either a materialistic or a deterministic view of the universe, that the whole universe is mathematical. And so it's like once you see the world from someone else's perspective, or if you see the world through the eyes of a Buddhist or a Muslim or whoever it may be, you have so much better chance to have a meaningful conversation with that person. Because it's not you talking from your perspective at them in their perspective. You're actually talking to them from their perspective about the perspective that you still see.
You're pulling out from them what is already inside. Yeah.
All the material you need to help a person find God is already inside of them. Sorry, a little side note.
I like that. Should we do?
Oh yeah.
All right. How are we doing? All right.
Let's do a Q&A.
Are you guys good? We're awake. Well, that was less people than I thought. Are you guys more awake? You guys are good. Okay. Yeah. Larchmont Deli. Is that what you had? Yeah. Oh, we have ruined that spot forever now. All these people are gonna come to LA and they're all gonna stand in that line and make the line even longer. No, that's the best sandwich in LA, I think. Okay, let's ask some people. If you have a question, two of our friends. Is it Marcos? Marcos is over there. Oh, hi. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah. Okay. So
if you have a question, stand,
and they'll come to you, and then they won't let you hold the mic because that gets weird.
That's the rule. Do not try to wrestle the mic from their hand.
Yeah. Or you'll get tased. Oh, there we go. We got one back there.
And let's be ready with the next person. That way we can actually move quickly.
Hi.
Hey guys.
What's up?
Doing?
Tell us your name and where you're from.
My name's Joe. I'm from Maryland.
He's part of the arena.
So shout out to the arena, actually. We're part of the arena.
All right.
There you go. Thanks, man.
If you are not part of the arena, you are sleeping. It is amazing. So my question is a little bit kind of a follow-up from something that we talked about. We asked a question a little while ago about how do you change what you believe? And one of the things that was brought up was that if you have a bad belief, it'll often cause pain, right? It'll cause pain in your life. And so kind of the road that went down in my mind was, okay, if a bad belief causes pain, what else causes pain, right? Is it bad character, bad people in your life, whatever it may be? And how do you differentiate where the pain is coming from and why? Is it like kind of figuring out what those categories are? And then how do I know where that pain is actually coming from? Does that make sense?
You want to tackle that one?
Yeah. I think you answered your question, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of. Do you have something you?
That's what I thought.
I think you answered the question.
You actually answered the question.
Yeah. I think bad, like firsthand, right? Like the moments in my life where I've really made bad decisions had bad character, right? Character's always been the struggle for me. Like character's an uphill battle. I don't really drink. I never got into drugs, but I made bad decisions, and I always had to figure out the hard way, right? And then at some point it just became exhausting. And so that, and then sometimes it's editing friends, right? There are times like no one's safe. Like I'll cut you from the team. Like no one has a starting position, right? Like because ultimately it's like if the outcome and the goal is to be more generous, to lead well, to be healthy, to find happiness, to also bring happiness and bring Jesus to other people. Still a mission of mine, even though I don't work for Mosaic anymore. But you have to be the best version of yourself. And I do find that bad character internally with me was the moments where It was the hardest thing. It was the hardest way to climb, right? That brought the most pain because it didn't just bring pain to me, it brought pain to everyone else around me.
Yeah, I think one of the things is instead of asking just the question of how do you identify what's causing the pain, is maybe reversing and going, how do I identify what would cause my optimal experience? And because the friends in your life, they usually, they're the best way to identify your negative and positive limit. Because if you don't have friends who are more exceptional than you, you don't want to improve. And so if you want to improve, you have to go, okay, I need at least one friend who's more exceptional in some area. So if you want to be more exceptional in your spirituality, you need a friend who loves God and has a deeper commitment than you. And the reason you need that is for discomfort. If you want to become more financially successful, you need to be around someone who's more successful than you, so that every time you're in the room, you go, yeah, I'm not all that. I have a ways to go. And so I lead a mastermind, and it's all men. And it seems like for some reason, all of them have like 8% body fat, pretty much. And then there's me. And so every time I'm in that room, I'm going, I need to be healthier. Because, they elevate the standard. And so rather than going, okay, how do I identify the pain points? Just go, it doesn't really matter where they're coming from. It just matters that they're there. And just always assume they begin with you. Like, that's just the best assumption. Just go, all my pain points began with a choice I made. It's either a choice I made to do something, a choice I made to be someone, or a choice I made to surround myself with some people. But those choices are what you have control over. That's a great question, by the way.
Got anybody else?
Hi, my name's Amanda. I was a part of the Art of Communication Season 1.
And where's home for you, Amanda?
Brooklyn, New York.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so actually that community, the Art of Communication, led me into a community of writers in Brooklyn because I wasn't here to practice that with all of you in person. And they come from all different faith backgrounds. I was raised Presbyterian, so all truth is God's truth, and we just have our scriptures. And that scripture is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, all of those things that I memorized. And yet these friends come from all of these different perspectives. Some of them are involved in indigenous plant medicine. Some of them are advocating on behalf of Palestine. Some of them are advocating as Israelis on behalf of Palestine. And they claim this so beautifully. They've challenged me to think about their truths such that I walk back into my church back home and I just want to shake the whole place up and say, how do we look at truth from just one book? Even though I was raised to believe that. So I love that you are a pastor. Aaron, I love that you ask questions of your dad that I'm so often wanting to ask of my dad. But how do we come to this belief in one book being the source of truth when there are so many different people across history and across time that God loves and reveals God's self to?
Great question.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you have that.
That's
one.
an easy one, Aaron, so I'm gonna give it to you.
Yeah. That's okay. So, source of truth, but that doesn't mean that there isn't truth outside of that, right? That's
Yes.
what I would.
Yeah, I think there's just so many different ways of layering this out. But first of all, just the more obvious ones. We don't base our life on one book. We base our life on 66 books that we've coalesced into one book. And because sometimes we think, oh, it's just one book. One person wrote the Bible. And so we're just holding on to this one. It's not. It's 66. I think it's right? 66 books that are coalesced. Because I'm wrong a lot. So, and that one, that helps me because I realize, no, there's a universe of thought in this one book. First of all, I think that's fascinating. And that there's a universe of thought over at least 1,000 years, over generations and cultures, and they have a universal thread that guides them together. So when I look at the scriptures, this is just me. I'm not even recommending it for everyone, but I actually read the book as an anthropologist more than I do as a theologian. And because I don't think I can know everything about God from the Bible. I can know God personally, but I don't think I can know everything about God. But I think I can know an extraordinary amount about humanity. So the Bible becomes for me an incredible source of truth about us. Secondly, when you're looking at other faith religions, sometimes we let people get away with bad thinking when they disagree with us without realizing it. We let people generalize things. Like, I'm much more brutal on Christians. In fact, I look and I realize, yeah, it could be said.
It could be said what?
That I'm unkind to people who believe and kind to people who don't believe. And
Rich is like, yeah, because you've been mean to Rich.
You know why? It's because if you have Jesus, I know you have the Spirit of God in you, and the truth should set you free. And so let's just get down to the truth and, work our way out.
Yes.
But when I have friends who don't believe in God, I understand their thinking is working within a particular system. And so also, one of the ways of elevating thinking, because when you're talking about your friends, you talk to you about Palestine, I have lots of friends who have different views. Listen for absolute language. See, and I know we're deviating here, but the moment a person captures language, they're capturing your thinking. And so when someone says, are you against the genocide? The moment the word genocide is used, you've embraced an entire worldview without realizing it. Are you against the occupation? The moment you use the word occupation. So no matter what your position is, you need to pay attention to the meaning in the words. And it's also true when you're using the scriptures. When people use the Bible, they can use absolute language that isn't true to the Bible either. And so there's a lot of things we hold as beliefs that the Bible doesn't actually validate. We just held them for 1,500 years. And so we have a hard time letting go of them. We should be the most ruthless with truth and the most caring for other people who have different views. So to me, if you're in a community of writers who have different beliefs, I think that's awesome. I love that. I would be just absorbing their stories and understanding that and getting their perspectives. And you don't have to argue the Bible to people who don't believe in the Bible. In fact, my friends who don't believe in God, they'll come to me and go, well, the Bible isn't true. And I go, okay. They go, what? They go, okay. And yeah, but what are you going to argue from? Let's just talk about being human. Let's just talk about universal principles. Let's even talk about Jesus. I don't need the Bible to talk about Jesus. And they go, okay. It's this fascinating space where when I was a brand new Christian, I read the 10 Commandments and I was really underimpressed. And I thought, wow, this is what everybody's been complaining about. And it's like
we're so opposite. Because I was like, oh, there's only 10. We're good.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah, he's just not asking that much, right? But I would have a lot of people go, I don't believe in the Bible. I don't believe in 10 Commandments. And I go, okay, pick yours. Mm-hmm. I did this a lot. And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, what are your commandments? Do you have any ethics? Any standards by which you live your life? They go, of course I do. I go, okay, what are they? And then we'd write them down. And then I go, so how are you doing? And they go, not well. And I say, see, this is the crazy thing about us as humans. Pick any 10 commandments and you can't live up to them. Because there's something broken in us. And this is the point God's trying to make. And so don't miss the overarching story, that God is for all of humanity. And by the way, there's no other book that tells you that. There's no other sacred text in the world, in any of human history, that says God has come for you, not you need to find a way to get to God. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Krisha. From Massachusetts, but I was a part of this community for a while, so grateful to be back. It's actually a follow-up from Joe's question. So he said, bad belief leads to pain, but what about suffering? And what's pain versus suffering? And if following God leads me towards pain or towards loneliness, following God has led me across the US into like a beautiful dream, but also a lot of loneliness. So like pain versus suffering, or pain that leads to growth. What's the difference? And does bad belief lead you towards pain? Does certain belief lead you towards suffering? So maybe it's just like a vocabulary and defining the words, but just trying to understand that concept more fully.
I missed your name.
Krisha,
And where are you from?
Massachusetts.
Okay, that's awesome. And I hear two words: pain, suffering. Suffering, pain, pain, suffering,
versus
suffering.
Can I
pain,
get you in the
pain,
mic?
pain.
Can I get
So
you?
I
hey,
think I
Dad,
caught the.
Can I get you in the mic? Can you pull the mic towards you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
So
yeah.
will it turn this way?
No, you can pull it out too. You can
Okay, I can-
open it. Yeah, there you go. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
I've just discovered a new freedom. All right. Back to Joe's question, which is a great connection, and you can jump in anywhere you want. But I just don't know how to avoid pain and suffering in life. So, not all pain is because you made bad choices.
And not all pain is bad.
Right. Yeah, I think we're going down maybe a wrong path here. I don't want to sound, no, I don't want to sound masochistic, but pain is good.
Pain is good.
Like, yeah. So the question is it pain that you've inflicted on yourself because of stupidity, or pain that you've put upon yourself because of discipline? Does that make sense? And so no pain will cause greater pain later. Because like studying takes pain. Like, health takes pain. And every level of excellence or greatness takes pain. So in that sense, going back to Joe, choose your pain and embrace your suffering. And because the one thing we do know about the story of Jesus is that he did not give us a path outside of suffering. He gave us a path. He gave meaning to suffering, which is much more valuable than to eliminate suffering from life. Yeah, it's good.
That's amazing.
I love that.
That's a good question.
You dive in.
You're doing great. He said, jump in. I said, you're doing great. Talk to us.
I'm Michael from Houston, and being wrong is very familiar for me with my family, but sometimes I'm wondering if they're wrong, and I'm trying to if they have the Holy Spirit, or if I do, or if we all do, and when do we know to just lay down the pride, and when to fight?
I love this question.
This is so good. But
This is such an honest question.
it's such an honest question.
Yeah.
I always fight. but I think you answered it yourself as well. I think it's when are you willing to lay down the pride, right? Does it get to the point where, what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up your family? You moved us away from your family, to have a healthier life than with, because you grew up in a broken home, and so did mom. And so you moved us far away and you started something new. I don't know, I stayed, and I moved back, and then I came back. And I went and worked for someone who kind of always gave me the idea, like, I'm just helping you to go back and build you up. And so I think maybe the season or the season of life you might be in, it might be a time where you need to break away, and it might be, but there might be, don't close the door to always going back, and I think that's what I would say. Because I think when I left LA, I went to New York because New York was where I could party and no one knew who I was. New York was where I could make my own bad decisions, and it wasn't, oh, well, I know your dad,
And yet they still did.
Fred, in the club too.
I know you walked in that
So
club, they
dumb.
identified you right away.
Yeah, but yeah, which is scary because it makes me more nervous, right? But I do think, but there was something about that, right? Because if I didn't end up running, I wouldn't have found who I was, and I wouldn't have found the people who helped me find Jesus, right? Like, I met some amazing people. I met a crazy guy named Carl, who was as crazy as you, who helped me understand that craziness is okay. And, loving Jesus is a beautiful thing, and then he was like, "It's time for you to go back," And so I think but what would you answer? When do you know when to cut it off? When do you know how to lay down your pride?
Yeah, I sometimes you're wrong, and sometimes your family's wrong, and sometimes it doesn't matter who's wrong, because you don't need a winner. You know, and I just decide that there are very few things that matter enough to fight over. And in fact, the other day, I can't even remember what it was. Kim and I went to see Mariah. We're driving back. We started to fight. And I could feel it inside of me. I'm right. You know what I mean? You know that feeling? I'm going to win this one. Like, you know.
And then you end up on my couch.
Unfortunately,
no.
Kim felt it at the same moment.
That's crazy.
And right before she would have to say that she's wrong, she said, "Is this worth fighting over?"
Oof.
That was smooth.
Smooth.
And I said, no. And you know what one of the hardest emotional disciplines is? To let go of a fight when you're right. So that you don't need to win. You just win the person. And I think that's a part of it, you know?
Yeah. But when you win with mom, you never really win.
No.
It's always a loss. It's always a loss. Do we have any more? We'll take like one or two more, and then we'll get us out of here. You got anything else? Oh, my man just stood up and looked for life.
Few. Okay. You guys got to choose quickly.
Quick. Okay. He reached for the mic and then got scared.
Didn't want to get shot, a sniper rifle somewhere in the room. Hi, my name is Adam. I'm from North Hollywood.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me too. I'm really interested in the relationship of fathers and sons, I guess principally because of my relationship with my own father. And I'm very curious about this reconciliation I've had to do about my relationship to my dad, who I love and I'm very close with, but having to develop my own separate faith from his, and how I've often made him my image of God, right? And I think I look at you, Aaron, and I'm like, that must be really complicated, being the son of someone like Erwin, and then having to individuate your own sense of faith. So I'm curious, it's sort of a two-part question. I'm curious how you've done that. And then the second question is, why do you think God has chosen to present himself as a father of all the familial figures he could have presented himself as?
It's a great question. You need to go back to North Hollywood. Which one do you want?
Well, I think the second half is a little nuanced when you say of all the familiar figures possible. There's only two.
Well, there's uncles, aunts. We know they're crazy.
I sit corrected, all right? He has fought on your behalf, and you have won. He could have been our cousin.
Yeah, he could have. He could have been. Have you
see?
met? Yeah.
I'm wrong all the time. Go back to the first one. How have you fought to have your own identity apart from being my son? Because it has to be really a bear.
No. It's harder for you than it is for me, I think. Yeah, because I'm embarrassing at times, often. I say the wrong things in the wrong rooms. I make more enemies than you do. I've learned to. Lately, the prayer I pray is when I was younger was prepare a feast before my enemies, because I thought that was such a righteous verse. And because I'm so petty. But lately it's been like, if you bless me, prepare a table so I can invite them back to it, right? To make the things right that I made wrong, that I made wrong, you know. With you though, how to make my own identity. One, I had to understand that my identity will always be attached to you if I let it be, right? And so I wanted proximity to you, so I had to understand that. And two, I also had to just fight for my ability to go I have to be able to make mistakes. That's just part of who I am. And if you hold me to them, then you're the one staying in the past, not me. Because I'm slippery. I'm gonna keep going forward. I'm gonna evolve as much as I can. I'm gonna grow as much as I can. I'm gonna admit as much wrong as I can to the embarrassment level that I can take. For the most part, someone laughed. But it's true, right? So building my own identity was really just this fact of going, okay, someone called me a pastor's son the other day. It was I had gone on a date. I don't like that. And she was like, oh, you're just a pastor's son. And I said, a pastor's kid. And I said, I haven't been a kid since I was 18. And, one could argue, I wasn't a child. I grew up really quick because we grew up in LA and you grew up faster in the city. So I was like, I've been a man for a while, but I've been a reckless man for a long time. And now I'm learning how to be a mature man. And so identity is something that is layered. So I don't limit it to like what my identity is now to the future, right? I go, okay, I'm nervous this conference. I'm gonna really try to not be so nervous next time. I love my dad and I understand the embarrassment I've brought. How do I bring good with it? So I try to bring more good than bad. Sometimes I'm the Clippers and sometimes, I'm not.
It's funny, I hadn't thought of this in a long time, but when I was 32 years old, I came to LA. And I came and was volunteering at a church. And they had a very powerful pastor who was well known across the world. And somebody came up to me and said, so are you just going to be one of Tom's boys? Very condescending.
He's the guy you worked for at the time.
And I didn't even work for him. I was just a volunteer, but And I remember I looked at this guy and I said, first of all, I'm nobody's boy. But secondly, if I don't have any substance, I should be grateful he's willing to share his substance with me. And if I have substance, I never have to worry about being someone's boy. And that's the thing, is that if Aaron didn't have any substance, he wouldn't be able to sit across the table. And the way to create your own identity is just to become a substantial man. Like have your voice, have your perspective. And you've used the phrase that you've embarrassed me at. I can't really think of a time where I thought to myself, oh, Aaron's embarrassed me.
Almost nothing embarrasses you though.
You know why? It's because the opinion of others means nothing to me in comparison to loving you. And it's like, and I always just felt badly going, man, I wish I could have given you the gift to struggle through adulthood and maturity in a more private setting rather than with such a big shining light on your life, where everyone wanted to prove I was not qualified to lead by anything you might do wrong. And I always knew that all the attacks on you were really an attack on me. They were just trying to go through you because they knew that that's what would hurt me the most. And it's just a reminder that human beings can be petty. And everyone who's honest about their fight, about their struggle, about their journey, will never criticize someone else in their fight and in their struggle and in their journey. When they go after you, they're just hiding from themselves. And so I appreciate the question, but we have a company together. We've built the arena together. Aaron had an idea that I didn't think was that extraordinary, but I went ahead and went with it. And he said, I have this idea. If you would just, trust me. And I said, okay, you can have 50% of all the profit. And then it made $500,000 in like a month.
No, we did $1 million a day.
And I'm like, did I say 50?
Yeah.
I can say this, I would not have the level of success in the business space I'm in if it wasn't for Aaron choosing to be my partner, and working with me. And I don't know why he would come back and go, I feel like what I am called to do is to get your message to everyone in the world. I've rarely known that level of humility in another human being. He didn't come back to me and say, hey, Dad, you have a huge platform. Could you give me a huge platform so that I could be famous? He basically said, I don't ever want people to know who I am. And I just want to take an important message around the world and impact people. And so I think, one, I'm glad you have a great relationship with your dad. If your dad isn't a public person, it's so much easier You can separate yourself so fast. When your dad is public, you have more nuances and more challenges. And you've always just said to me, hey, there's downsides, but there's upsides, and I'm willing to live with both.
Yeah, no choice.
All right, let's just take a couple of more questions and we'll close
Let's
up.
do one more and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
Well, you guys
let's hear it, Martwan. You look good. You've been in the gym.
I have.
He looks good, doesn't he? Yeah, he does.
Hi, everyone. Martwan from Los Angeles. My question, Pastor Erwin and Aaron, is you both talked about the darkness that comes with emotions and depression and sadness and all of that. And just wonder, how do you make sense? You said it's very human, but sometimes it feels inhumane. So how do you make sense of it? And what are some practical steps that you all have taken to kind of like get through it?
Why you look at me?
How do you fight through your darkest moments?
This has been a conversation we've been having on the pod a lot, but even internally is like, you travel a lot and I get to travel. We travel together a lot for the biz and for church stuff. So I really struggle with like not having a routine because I find that when I'm highly disciplined, there's less like frequency issues. So I stay more positive, I stay more focused, I just lock into the routine, and then that keeps me like, just in like a clear head. Also being creative, like when we're in creative seasons, it's just weird stuff happens. Like your mind is just more imaginative. We're creating for different things. We're doing business. We're staying up late. We're waking up early. Life isn't so routine as I would like it to be. So I've been working with that. I work with a therapist as well. And it's more on like how to just build healthy constructs, mental constructs, right? One of them is, she laughed and was like, you travel more than most people I know. You need rituals, not routines. You need things that, like one of the things she's been talking to me through is like just how to feel and understand what's going on through your body and your mind, and accepting it, understanding it, giving your safe space to feel it, and then to move on. And then to just like swallow it and keep going. And also like how to like pressure release, talk to people, have those conversations, whether it's being grateful, praying for my enemies, the ones I made. Right? It's like you could laugh at it, but it's true, right? So I spend the first part of my day just going, okay, look, like there's a lot of wrong I've done, so let's do some good. Let's do some right. Let me look out, let me have their back, even though they don't even know that I'm praying for them. Try to make my life, my day-to-day life, less about me and more about other people. Also helps, right? But it's hard, right? Because when it's a mental battle, it's an internal battle, you're going, it's 1v1, right? It's me versus myself, but you're always gonna lose. Right? No one wins in that. So I go, okay, look, how can I go help somebody else to make their life a little bit better, make my life? Generosity is this most selfish, beautiful thing in the world, right? I feel great when I get to be generous. I feel great when I feel like I've overcome a mental summit, right? So discipline, finding good pain. I love working out. I love running. I hate both of those things, But it's part of that like love for like that pain and that suffering a little bit, and going, I become better when I do this, right? I have more of a story to tell. And then also just going like allowing myself to feel things, man. Like it's okay to feel things. I think there's like a stigma around feeling things. Sometimes people feel too much though. 'Cause I don't love too many feelings, but 5 minutes in the car at the end of the night, right before you go inside, What do you got?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that really strikes me is that you have to be careful of the space in between who you want other people to see you as and who you are. Because the energy that it takes to be the person you want other people to see is so exhausting that's, I think, the number one reason for crash and burn. Because then you come to the end of yourself and you go, I can't keep up the pace of pretending to be this person. And so I would say, Martwan, and I can feel, that you're in a challenging moment right now, and it somehow this hits you at a deep level. I think sometimes it's just sitting in who you are right now and going, I'm not who I really want to be, or living the life I really want to have. But what really oftentimes creates the pain is and everyone can see it now. Because I think we spend more energy trying to be for other people than we spend to be for us. You know, and the best thing that can happen in a moment of brokenness or a moment of disappointment is to just stop being somebody else and then see who's still in your life. And then those are the people that will help you come out of it and discover the best version of you. Yeah.
That's good.
So I think it's good.
Thank you for the question. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I'm done.
This has been fun.
Okay.
Have you guys had a good time?
Yes. Thank you so much.